This episode of 6-Button Death Punch is brought to you by Alpha and Omega Radio.com. Play, listen, level up.
When you think of a company that most commonly produces fighting games, what comes to your mind? Probably Capcom, Tecmo, and or, of course, Namco Bandai. But I bet one name that didn't flash up in those big pretty lights of yours, that was Konami, right? Well, that's what we're here to talk about today, coincidentally.
Fighting games are meant to be the ultimate head-to-head competition between gamers. Instead of vying for bragging rights after beating someone's high score, you could literally beat your opponent into submission, using your own skill, quick wit, and reflexes for everyone around the arcade to witness. So what better way to feature this behemoth of a genre than a fighting game from a company that doesn't really make fighting games? It's time to lay the smackdown on the good, the bad, and the absolutely terrible. It's time for 6-Button Death Punch. Today's game is just dying for a punch to the face. It's called Kensei, Sacred Fist. Odds are you probably haven't heard of this game, which means you probably haven't played it either, and if that's the case, good. Very good. Let's just keep it that way.
The interesting thing about this game is that it was made by Konami, who, by the time of Kensei's release on November 13th, 1998, was not very well known for making fighting games. Everyone remembers TMNT Tournament Fighters, right? Rumble Roses? Rakuga Kids, alright, you get the point, but just because Konami didn't make a name for itself milking the cash cow of the fighting genre like its competitors Capcom and Namco, Konami still takes the honor of being one of the first companies to help build fighting games into what they have become today.
Flashback to 1984. Whoa, dude! Arcades are booming, and gamers are seeking new and radical ways to test their skills against their friends. In comes Data East Karate Champ, which virtually pits a gi-clad warrior against an identical clone, fighting for victory under the eyes of a watchful referee.
Gamers got their first true taste of modern fighting aside from Sega's Heavyweight Champ and Tim Skelly's Warrior by experiencing a side-view brawl that used arcade sticks and special moves.
But where Data East would take the first small step, Konami would boldly take the next with ER Kung Fu. Roughly translated into 1-2 Kung Fu, ER gave us unique characters with their own special skills and appearances, as opposed to Karate Champ where you basically fought a twin in a different colored outfit.
The only downside to ER was that you could only play as the main character Oolong, having the other characters act as levels of progression throughout the game. There was a 2-player mode, but it was fashioned like Super Mario Bros. And Gradius, where gamers would take turns trying to best each other.
Flash forward more than a decade later, and fighting games have taken a quantum leap into the 3D world, with games like Virtua Fighter and Tekken commanding possession of an untold amount of quarters, and a Johnny Cage-like grip on the balls of the genre.
You would think with such great gameplay and graphics, the only places to go up, right? Well, the answer to that is one word. Well, 3 actually. Kensei Sacred Fist.
So now we've set the record straight. It's time to see if Kensei will put up a fight or take a fistful of pain. Round 1. Presentation. At a first glance, this game would actually seem kind of cool. I mean, look at that logo. Nothing says serious fighting game like a couple of Japanese symbols, a guy poised to take you down, and a couple of extreme close-ups of characters that look like they're about to rape you. All of that majesty that is glowing off the case eventually fades the moment you unwittingly slip this game into your PlayStation. Ah, did you like that cutscene? Good, because it's the only one you get in the entire game. The intro screen seems pretty standard for an arcade game, but there's just one problem. Kensei is a straight-to-console port, which makes this flat, dull, boring menu screen completely pointless.
It's understandable to emulate the arcade feel, but there is no reason that developers couldn't have taken the high road in trying to immerse the player into the experience, which coincidentally starts at the main menu.
Next is the character select screen. Basic fighting format, character profiles are both large and thumbnail sizes, whoop-de-doo in the versus fashion. You think with all this CG technology flying around that Konami would spring to get a little bit more realistic character pictures. But I guess they were pretty hunky-dory in sticking with a less than stellar hand-drawn style. Kind of looks like anime. Not really digging it.
You can take it for what it is, but right now this game is giving me a strong urge of becoming Rice Krispies, because I would rather like to snap, crack, and pop Kensei Sacred Fist right now. Well, we're this far in, so I suppose there is no turning back.
Woo! Look at them graphics! It's like a bastardized fusion of Tekken and Virtua Fighter. They even went as far as to ditch a fully functioning landscape and make an infinite ground space with a panoramic view slapped in the background. I would have thought Namco would have patented that by now.
The characters are blatantly knockoffs of better-known fighters from better-known series. Karate suit, glove wearing, 20-something-year-old out for revenge? Check. Japanese schoolgirl with bad boot physics? Check. Ninja? Check. Street brawler with face band-aids? Check. Steven Seagal? Check.
Yeah, next to franchise lookalikes, it would seem that Kensei decided to take some real-world inspiration for some of their characters as well. But hey, what other game lets you beat the crap out of Green Day frontman Billy Joe Armstrong?
Stereotypically, all the fighters hail from different parts of the world, but don't really reflect the countries of origin. Each character also has a backstory, but good luck figuring that out without a game manual. The game never mentions nor gives the slightest hint of any kind of plot. It's just beat this person, fight this next person, fight this fat evil guy in the corporation office, and then fight this other evil looking dude in the corporation office. Credits, game over.
The fighting styles, if you want to call them that, are horrendous in this game. We'll cover how bad the control system is in the next round, but for only having 2 attacks, punching and kicking, the game does little to showcase the complex differences from player to player.
For crying out loud, Douglas' style is supposed to be Jeet Kune Do. You know, that flashy stuff made famous by Bruce Lee. Look at this guy. He moves like a freaking rock. Ann and David are both wrestlers, but Ann is an amateur wrestler, while David is a professional wrestler. What is the difference? There is none in this gameplay, apparently.
And of course, the main character in the game, Yugo, is a karate fighter. Way to think outside of the box, Konami.
It's also good to note that this game came out on November 30th, 1998, whereas Tekken 3 was released almost 6 months before on May 1st. Safe to say that if they were hoping to take the home fighting market by storm, Konami was about 3 years late.
This round is a no-brainer. 6-button death punch 1, Kensei 0.
Round 2, controls and gameplay.
Oh my god, where do we even start with this?
Well, you could really enter from any angle. Only 2 attack buttons, sluggish combos, or the worst of it all, the parrying system.
You know, it's actually kind of interesting. I guess in Kensei's logic, every fighting style that ever existed never taught its students how to block a punch. Because that's what you get with the parry button. You never block a single attack in the entire game.
Instead, you press the X button to dodge your opponent's attacks. It's quite literally the Staples easy button of fighting games.
You dodge everything! Not to mention the fact that because you do this, you don't take damage. And because you don't take damage, there's no consequence for defending yourself in a fight. You could spend the entire match parrying and not lose a single shred of life.
This completely removes a lot of fighting stratagems because it takes away any cautious decision making revolving around a defensive system that doesn't guarantee safety.
Next up is the combo list. God, these things are shorter than a midget that coaches a professional basketball team.
2 buttons, that's all you get. Even back when Street Fighter 2 first hit the market, players had a larger variety of button play than this. The combos themselves are pretty dull. 1-2 punches, 3 button sequences, and no real dynamic directional movement taking place in making moves happen.
If the combos weren't bad enough, the characters' movesets are even worse. Konami was pulling Smash Bros. Cloning way before Nintendo decided to get overzealous with it in Melee. Every character that you unlock is basically a clone of another fighter. And it's also conveniently placed below said fighter that they're copying in the character select screen.
And finally, we come to the ultimate death blow that keeps Kensei from ever being enjoyable. This game is more broken than a glass window with a broken ball tossed through it.
Every character, literally every character, has 1 or 2 moves that can break the game when playing against the computer opponent. Combined with the fact that not only can you string certain moves to beat the game into submission, the computer will fall for it every single time.
It's real simple. Find your character's grounding technique. This is a move that you can instantly send other fighters to the ground. When you do this, the computer's automatic response is to get up and counterattack. Because of the game's sluggish delay after each move or the moment the AI is done retaliating, you can just send them right back down to the ground.
There's only 3 characters who don't always fall for this trick initially: Sesu, Arthur, and Hong. They'll most commonly roll out of the way to avoid the next attack, but then again, it's just a matter of memorizing the pattern and then just taking them to the ground again.
Broken doesn't even scratch the surface of this game, but it does give me a good suggestion of how I feel the condition of this disc should be after I take it out.
Round 2 goes to Death Punch.
Round 3, final say.
Here at 6-button Death Punch, it's not all about anger, frustration, and regret. We also like to give credit where credit is due. That is, if there's anything actually good to say. So here's Kensei's last chance to give us anything that may redeem itself thus far in the fight.
One thing that did stand out to us was the soundtrack. Just when you think things can't go any worse, this giant turret just so happens to have a piece of gold struck in the side.
Oh, the music in this game gets you so pumped that it's just... It's almost like you want the game to be good just so you can have a better excuse to play it.
Awesome guitar riffs, groovy drum set rhythms, and overall gritty in-your-face style. Kensei's soundtrack actually does a pretty good job of putting the player in the scenario of a street brawl.
In the end, Kensei Sacred Fist can only really squeeze the minimum amount of praise that we can give to a game. And we are talking the short hairs on a squirrel's nutsack here.
Terrible controls, lackluster gameplay, little to no atmosphere or creativity. This game could have been so much more if there was just more in it.
Now we should go ahead and mention once again that Konami, while being responsible for this god-awful poop statue that it is not a bad gaming company by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, they've been responsible for making some of the greatest gaming franchises of all time, like Metal Gear Solid, Castlevania, Gradius, and one of our personal favorites, Mystical Ninja.
It would be safe to say that when it comes to fighting games, Konami would do their best to let that ship sail to the sunset and leave it to the big boys.